I wanted to spend some time today, before we really jump into our next iteration of our level, talking about some dramatic elements that we need to be infusing, or we should be infusing, in all of the work that we create. Okay? Video games are not too different from that of traditional entertainment, television, movies. Okay? If you look back at really good television shows, they're chock full of drama, right? You know, the actions that, or the events that surround our main characters aren't just like little things. They are like earth-shaking moments in their lives. And every episode, another earth-shaking moment changes fundamentally the trajectory of that main character, right? These are not little obstacles. They're humongous obstacles. They're dramatic. And we want to make our experiences big and dramatic, which will then turn into engagement, interactivity, and most importantly, fun. Okay? So there are a couple dramatic elements that I want us to look at real fast. And we're not going to talk about all of these today, but there are a couple in here that I really want to focus our attention on. Okay, these are kind of the classic dramatic elements that you see in a lot of video games out there. Of course, there's challenge. That's a big part of it. There's play. Premise. What's premise?
Why you are where you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the synopsis. Like, this is the context of the experience that we're trying to create, right? So we have to create that context. There has to be a reason for everything, right? And the cool thing about being a designer, and this is what I was talking with Mike about this during our discussion, is that as a designer, we get to come up with all of this stuff, right? This is our job as the game designer, is to physically just make crap up all day, right? That's a pretty good job, all right? So that's our responsibility, is to generate all of these ideas, okay? And this is where the fun part of it comes in. It's like we get to build this little experience, this little world, and the context of that world is something that we need to draw focus to. Okay, and of course, character and story. Okay, these are big daddy ones in this era. Actually, I would say probably world building is the one that we are kind of stuck at the moment. Okay. We are into world-building games. And when I say world-building games, I mean games where there is a sandbox for us to play in, right? Those are really huge experiences and very popular experiences at the moment. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the game design industry was really focused on the importance of character and story. And that's not to say that we're not focused on that anymore, but the world-building aspect has definitely come in. Now, why is the world-building something that is kind of new at the moment and really popular?
Because we can do more.
Because we can do it, yeah. Because we physically have the technology that allows us to make an infinite universe, or almost infinite, like we see in No Man's Sky, okay? That's pretty interesting. That's a new dynamic that's been taken, that's kind of taken root because the technology has advanced, right? I want to focus our attention today on challenge. Because as we start to focus in on our first level, this idea of creating a challenge, something for our player to do, is really quite paramount. It's the most important thing at this stage. We'll start layering in story and characters a little bit on, but we need to give our players something to do, right? They're not just going to explore because they feel like they need to explore. In every sense, we have to hold them by the hand and kind of drag them through this initial experience. We have to invite them to play. Sometimes it's more than an invitation. It's more of a shove in the back. Say, go play the game. This is what you're doing at the moment. But we need to create those opportunities and then invite our players to go through those opportunities. Okay? So the challenge part, the creating the challenge, that's on our shoulders. And there's a couple ideas in here that I want to make sure that we understand. Okay? The cool thing about challenge is that it is a very individualized experience, right? Everyone's going to interpret the exact same challenge differently, right? Now, if you were, I'm really into basketball. I love basketball. Basketball is a lot of fun. I enjoy playing it. I really enjoyed watching it. I'm not a very good basketball player. I mean, look at me. I'm not that big of a dude, right? Everyone is bigger than I am, right? So I historically do not do well at basketball, but that doesn't mean I don't like playing it, right? The challenge for me isn't so much getting around the big dudes, because I'm never going to get around the big dudes. I'm always going to be the slowest person on the court. So the challenge of basketball is trying to find those creative opportunities to pass the ball, because that kind of turns into my role as the small guy on the team. I'm the quick small guy, so I'm the passer, right? I'm not the guy making the baskets. I'm not the guy, definitely not the dude that's slam dunking the ball, right? But my job is to figure out creative ways to share the ball with my teammates, right? That's my challenge. That's my individualized experience that this opportunity provides me. Now, the challenge for each person on the team is going to be different. If I'm the big dude, the big guy or gal that's humongous, that's 7 feet tall, their challenge is going to be different than what my challenge is, okay? We have to make sure that when we're designing these experiences that we're creating challenges that appeal to not everyone, but to the target audience, right? So what does that mean? We got to know our audience, right? We got to know who we're making these challenges for. And we have to understand very directly who this game is for, right? Because the challenge for me is going to be very different than the challenge for Brianna or Vo or Kevin, right? We're all going to see it a little bit differently, okay? Now, another thing a good challenge needs to have, and it's a core component, is it needs to be dynamic. What does that mean? It needs to be changing. Yeah, absolutely. The challenge can't stay consistent. If it's the exact same challenge 8 times in a row, how many times are we going to run through that experience before we turn the game off? Probably 3 or 4, and then we're going to go, we're done, right? I don't want to do this anymore. So we need to keep changing and kind of maturing and evolving the challenge so that it continues to sustain the interests of our audience, right? Basketball is such a great analogy of this, because the challenge of basketball seems pretty linear throughout the entire game, but how does the challenge of basketball increase or change throughout the duration of the game? Okay, there are competitors. What are some of the things that will change the experience of playing a game of basketball? Time, fouls, what else? Fatigue, that's definitely part of the challenge, right? You're definitely not running as fast at the end of the game as you are at the beginning of the game, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, injuries, absolutely. These are all dynamic elements of the game that influence our engagement in the challenge, right? We want our challenges to also be changing ever so slightly. We saw a really great example of this last week when we looked at some of the game dynamics of Mario Galaxy, right? The idea that we introduce a challenge, we develop the challenge, we twist the challenge ever so slightly, and then we have some sort of test or conclusion of that challenge, right? Still the exact same challenge, but it's changing, it's evolving as the gamer goes through the experience.
What exactly do you mean by the test or the conclusion of that challenge? The reward at the end?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Right. In the context of Mario Galaxy, it was that boss battle, which was almost the exact same challenge, just amplified and twisted a little bit so that it looked different from what we had previously seen in the level, right? We need to do the exact same thing with our challenges, right? We don't want to have the exact same seek and find mission 8 times, because it's going to get boring, right? We need to start to evolve that challenge and twist it a little bit so that it changes over the lifespan of its challenge. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Okay, now obviously we want our games to be fun, okay? And we want them to be enjoyable. And there are some ideas that I want you to think about that will help increase the enjoyment factor of your gamer, okay? So these are guidelines, kind of like the pirate laws. They're guidelines, kind of get us down the right path, okay? So here's some things that I would like you to consider, okay? Number 1, okay, when trying to make an enjoyable challenge or an enjoyable experience, we want to make sure that our gamer is confronted with a challenge that they think that they have a chance of completing, right? World of Warcraft is such a great example of this. Hi, my name's Pat, and I'm a recovering World of Warcraft addict, okay? I was a hardcore addict for many, many, many years. It actually, big time. Oh yeah, it took over my life, right? And for a period of time, there's friends among us, okay? There was a period of time when I went to work all day. I'd come home, 6 or 6:30. I'd be logged on to the WoW servers by 6:30, and then I'd blink. Next thing I know, it's 3:30 a.m., and I go, oh, maybe I should get a couple hours of sleep before I have to go to work the next day at 8, and then rinse and repeat. That was my life, okay? Every single day was WoW until the moment I got home to the moment I passed out in front of my computer, right? That was it. That was my life, okay? And if you look at the way that the game designers have brilliantly structured World of Warcraft, okay, they always give you a challenge right in front of you that you think you can achieve, right? You don't know that you can achieve, because if you know that you can achieve a challenge, why are you even going to do it, right? You have to struggle just a little bit, right? It's just barely outside of what you think you know how to do, right? If you look at the first experience in WoW, or one of the first early experiences in the game, of course the game designers are trying to teach you the mechanics of it, but they're making it just a little bit harder than the instructions that they give you, right? And the instructions are pretty vague. And it's like, hey, run down the hill and get 3 boxes. And you go, oh, I think I can do that, right? And then you run down the hill to find 3 of whatever, and you go, well, how do I pick it up, or how do I get it? Now you're immediately faced with a challenge that you didn't necessarily expect, but it's easily attainable after about 10 seconds of research and experimentation, right? That's a challenge that the gamer thought they could do. It was just ever so slightly harder than what actually happened, right? We also need to direct our gamer on a singular task, okay? World of Warcraft, again, is a perfect comparison to this. I would love to see the game design document for World of Warcraft, because it's probably going to go down in history as probably one of the better designed games out there, right? Shoot, just look at the longevity of the game. When did World of Warcraft begin? Yeah, 2006. So here it is, 12 years later, and WoW is still kicking butt, right? And they had a major release at the beginning of August, too.
I might be off topic, but
Awesome.
on the topic of the challenge, how can we avoid basically running errands, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we can avoid running errands by changing it, by making it dynamic, by not having them. No one likes seek and find missions that's over and over and over again.
Or escort missions.
Yeah, or escort missions. Those get boring. Those are fun maybe the first or second time, but then you're like, okay, how are we going to twist this? How are we going to make it different? How are we going to still achieve the exact same result, but maybe put some sort of, instead of like go from A to B, maybe it's go from A to Z, and now you have a couple other waypoints along the way that will, allow you to do certain things in between those different points, okay? The cool thing about WoW is that they really focus you on a singular task, right? If you look at the missions and the quests that you're assigned in the game, you're just doing one thing. You may be doing like find 3 magical eggs on top of this, such and such hill, right? But you're still just doing that one thing. We focus the gamer on completing one task at hand, right? That's a big component of good game design. We're not asking them to do 8 things, because you know what? I can't do 8 things at once, right? I can do one thing at a time very well. Special people can do 2 things at once, like walk down the street and like pat their head. I can't even do it, right? Yeah, I've already failed, right? Hop on one leg while I try to 3D model something. That's not going to work, right? Another thing that we have to do to ensure our gamers are really enjoying the challenges that we create is that we need to be explicit with the outcomes, right? We're not trying to keep something from our gamers. We're not trying to hold back some sort of magical secret that we think is required for them to enjoy the challenge itself. We need to tell them from the beginning, this is what we're trying to do, and this is how you do it, right? The enjoyment factor comes in between the start and the conclusion of that challenge, right? But the explicit instructions are the beginning of the experience, right? This is kind of strange for us, right? Because we think as designers, we think as both the designer and the gamer, right? But we're designers in this class, okay? We hold all the keys and we know where all the doors are, okay? There's nothing magical for us, right? We're not trying to hold something back at this stage and in this environment, right? So we need to ensure that when we're designing something, we are explicit, we're clear, we're laser focused, and that feeds up into the other 2 points that we've talked about before, okay? The other thing that I like about WoW is that you know immediately when you've achieved the goal, right? Immediately, the moment you pick up that last magical egg, boom, you get some sort of interactive feedback on screen that says mission complete, Go return this item to Grandmaster, blah, 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 whatever, right? You know the second that it's done, right? That immediate feedback is really important for a gamer's understanding of when the challenge has come to a conclusion, right? Because not only do we need to be explicit with what the challenge is, but we also need to be explicit when the challenge is done, right? I mean, you guys have played games like this where it's not immediate, where you think you're done, but you're like, am I really done? Is there anything more that I have to do here? I have successfully collected 10 coins, but I'm not, did I miss something, right? And now the gamer is not having fun anymore in that moment, right? And they're sitting there scratching their head going, huh, right? Bad game design. That's our fault. That's our problem, okay? We don't want to make bad games. We want to make good games. Okay. Deep and effortless involvement. This is kind of a fun part, right? We want to make sure our challenges, let me step back for a second. My biggest criticism of WoW, of World of Warcraft, it is not deep and effortless. It is very shallow, very shallow. The quests are simple seek and finds. There's really, and the narrative that they string together is loosely tied together in the actual game itself, right? What makes it pretty engaging and incredibly addictive is that there's always something to do, right? If I have a presentation that I have later on about blissful productivity as gamers, right? As gamers, we want to do something in a game, right? And we're the most happy when that idea of blissful productivity is fulfilled in the experiences that are in front of us, right? So we want to try to make our experiences deep, right? We want to try to make the challenges deep. I think in the early stages of the games, it's probably a good practice to make them simple so that they can grasp the core gameplay mechanics. But then, have you guys ever played the game The Witcher? Great game.
Which one, though?
All three of them are awesome. Yeah.
I've only played 3.
Yeah, they're pretty phenomenal games. Well designed, okay? Beautifully rendered, well designed games, great story. So great. Huh?
That's super depressing.
Absolutely, it's super depressing, right? And they tell some weird stories, right? Especially in The Witcher 3.
Anything right in that game. You were always in that.
Yeah. And there's some weird stories that they tell in the Witcher games, but the experience is pretty deep. Just look at the gameplay mechanics, right? I remember when I was playing The Witcher 3, I often forgot like what controls that I needed to press in order to make this super, it can get deep and complex pretty quickly, okay? That's a desired goal, but it's also potentially a big landmine that will blow up in our face if we step on it, right? Because what happens when we make our game too deep and too complex?
I have an example.
Yeah, hit me.
Back when MGS5 came out, MGS 5.
Uh-huh.
I'm about to do this. I'm about to put mess up this game. I played it. One mission took like two hours and change.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Are you serious? Yeah.
half the game or something.
Right?
I go back to check. It said I had 0.5% of the game complete. I can't do it. So I'm not finished.
It's like, am I really going to invest 400 hours of gameplay to get through this thing? Yeah, I know what you mean.
JRPG? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep cruising because I'm pontificating longer than I so desire. Okay. A couple other conditions that I want to draw your attention to. The chance of exercising a sense of control over their actions. Okay. Now, as gamers, we have an interesting challenge put before us because we're both a participant of this wonderful experience, but we are aware that we're playing a game, right? One of the reasons we're attracted to games as a whole is that we want to imprint something of ourselves on the experience that we're going through, right? We see something in the experience that attracts our attention, and we want to influence that experience as much as we can. So we need to allow our players, and this is going to sound silly, right? But we need to allow our players to actually play the game. Okay, to actually have them do something to manipulate the experience and feel as though they're actually influencing the actual game itself, right? That's what the gamer wants to feel. But as the game designer, what are we doing? Are they actually influencing the experience? No, they're not influencing the experience at all, right? Because like I said, we know where all the keys are. We know where all the locked doors are. We're the ones that put them there. So we are allowing them, okay, to kind of play in our sandbox, but it's really not a sandbox. It's a controlled environment, right? It's a controlled environment from the outset. because it's our job as the game creators to create an experience, okay? And we have to craft and mold and push our gamer towards that experience. So it's not truly, they're never truly on their own, right? Okay. Yeah. So the middle one the 7 and 8 are kind of tied to each other a little bit, okay? Enjoyment happens when the periphery of our world starts to blur out of focus a little bit, okay? And we truly get sucked into that experience, right? Where we're no longer thinking about our keyboard and our mouse or the game controller in our hand, and we're completely encapsulated with what the challenge is in front of us, right? That's a good game. It takes a lot of play testing and a lot of experimentation to find that secret recipe where it all sinks in and you're truly, truly hooked, right? That should always be the goal of the experiences that we create. True immersion, right? Where they forget about the outside world and they focus entirely on what they're doing in front of us, right? Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it, but that's really kind of the power of video games, is that we have that complete interactive, immersive experience, right? You know, I'm sure my mother would be screaming at me right now. What? Are you kidding me? You want your gamers to forget the real world? Yeah, well, that's kind of enjoyment. That's what we do, right? And believe it or not, this is not too dissimilar from the other media entertainment types out there. If you go to a movie, a good movie that truly has captivated your attention, do you honestly forget that you're sitting in a theater surrounded by 400 or 500, of your closest friends? Okay. Yeah, well, a good one. One that you're truly into, like a video game. Not all video games are going to allow us to kind of get this level of immersion, right? But some, like for me, I'm a big Marvel superhero fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, right? And I remember I went and saw Infinity War opening night at an IMAX theater, and I was immersed in that. And all of a sudden, I was like, 3 hours later, I was like, oh, I guess I should go home now, right? Because it was amazing, right? That's the type of experience that we're trying to get. That is truly enjoyment. When the audience member, or in our case, the gamer, forgets that they're playing a game, right? Yeah. The sense of duration is kind of scary. We've all done this. We're sitting there playing a video game, then we blink, it's like 5 hours later, right? One of my favorite games of all time is the Civilization series, right? I love Civs. I'm a huge fan of all the Civilization games. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me personally, where I sit down, I start a game, I blink, or I'm like 100 turns in, and it's 4 a.m., and I have to go, my alarm is going to go off at 6:30, right? And I go, oh, this was a bad idea, but it happens, right? It's going to happen. All right. Make sense? Yep, okay. So this is the sweet spot, okay? This is called the flow theory, and as game designers, this is where we are trying to find our gamers into. Now imagine this is a graph, okay? The horizontal axis is the ability of our gamer, okay? And the vertical axis is challenge, okay? We want to sit in there, kind of right in the middle, okay? Because as our gamer gets better with the game, right, the challenge needs to increase, okay? If they're getting better, but the challenge it doesn't increase, what are they going to find ourselves into? Boredom. Turn the game off, right? If the challenge is increasing, but their ability isn't getting better, what's happening? They're getting frustrated. They're turning the game off, right? So we need to increase their ability and increase the challenge at the exact same time, okay? We want to stay in this zone. We want to have our challenges get harder, but we need to ensure that the ability of our gamer is going up as well. So the challenges need to cascade, they need to scaffold on top of each other. We build foundation level 1, okay? We teach them how to open up a crate, okay? Or how to pick up a crate, Teach them how to pick up a crate. The next challenge is you pick up a crate and you stack it on top of a block, right? The next challenge is you have to take, make a pyramid of crates and stack them on top of each other, okay? Which will allow you to maybe jump on top of a platform and go to the next part, right? They build on top of each other. At every opportunity, we're increasing the challenge, but we're also hopefully building our gamer's ability as well. Okay. Mihaly has a great quote. It's one of the classic game designers in our world. An activity balances a person between challenge and ability, frustration and boredom, to to produce an experience of achievement and happiness. It is a balance, okay? If you, out there in the game space, you hear a lot of people talking about game balance. This is it, trying to figure out how we increase the ability while increasing the challenge. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you pronounce that last name?
I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to call him Mihaly. All right. So, in review, okay? Challenge occurs when the goal is directed, okay? And this is an important part, which is why I put it first. We need to tell the player exactly what our expectations of them are truly, okay? We don't want them to guess, okay? We don't want them to just kind of stumble through this. We always want to make sure that they understand explicitly what the outcome is going to be. We may not tell them how to get to that outcome, but we should always tell them what they're trying to do, right? I mentioned earlier that I'm in the middle of No Man's Sky right now. I find that it's a great game for my lifestyle, right? And I can commit 20 minutes to 30 minutes of game time a day, right? So No Man's Sky is good because I can kind of cruise around the universe for 20 or 30 minutes, and I'm a happy camper before I go to bed, right? And right now, the developers are doing these. They're doing a whole bunch of community events, which is pretty cool. They're giving these challenges, and the outcomes of these challenges will give you new things in the game, right? I'm on one now where they're asking you to feed a whole bunch of animals, and it's like, I don't know how to feed an animal, okay? I knew what the outcome was going to. I had to feed 25 animals, but they didn't tell me how to do it, right? I knew what the goal was. They told me explicitly what I had to do. I had to feed 25 animals. Go figure it out, right? That's a good directed challenge. It's a little bit harder than what I know I can do, right? I know I can walk around. I know I can find these aliens, but how in the world do I feed them? I don't know. Okay. Games have rules, okay? The players are bound by those rules. We need to make sure that the rules of the game are clearly communicated to the player, right? When a player accepts to play a game, he or she is going to accept the boundaries of that game, okay? It's like when we play a game of basketball, going back to our conversation at the beginning of the day, right? When we all step on the court and play a game of basketball, we all basically say, okay, this painted line around the outside of the court, this is where the game is going to exist, inside this boundaries. That is a rule, okay? And if you try to dribble the ball or shoot the ball outside that boundary, you're no longer playing the game, and what you do is completely void and null, okay? So we need to make sure the player understands the rule, because that's part of the challenge and part of the enjoyment, right? Really, honestly, if you think about it, it's a determining factor of challenge, knowing that this is the box that I had to play in, and I'm going to produce the outcome of the challenge within that box.
I think that's back to the Metal Gear Solid 5 point. I think that's why that game isn't that fun and takes too long. The world is too big for getting what you need to do done.
Yeah.
It's too much space to play in, so
Yep.
getting shit done
Is tough, right? Yeah, it's tough.
No, I'm talking about Metal Gear Solid 5, even things like what's it called? Elder Scrolls. But like Elder Scrolls, I think does it better than Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah. Last point on this one. It cannot be done without the proper skills, okay? As game designers, we need to teach our players how to play the games and to overcome the challenges, okay? It doesn't mean we have to hand feed them all the answers, right? But we do need to ensure that we're educating them on how this game operates, okay? Their own personal skill is going to determine, is going to be a factor in the challenge quotient. It really is, okay? But they have to have the skills in order to play the game. And if you don't have the skills, this is going to be a really hard experience for you, right? And you get to determine at what level you're going to continue playing the game. Like I know for me at basketball, I'm never going to be in the NBA. I just don't have the skills to play at that level, right? I have the skills to play with a couple of my guy friends, and we don't run very fast, and we shoot the ball pretty poorly, right? But we still have a tremendous amount of fun, right? At that skill level, the challenge is overcome. If I was to jump onto an NBA court, I'd walk off in about 2 seconds because it would not be fun for me because those guys are going to smoke me. Okay. So we're trying to merge our player and our game together. Okay. Good game design is immersive. Okay. People become so involved in what they're doing that activity becomes spontaneous. Okay. Almost automatic. They stop being aware of themselves as separate from the actions they are performing. Isn't that a cool idea, right? What does this really speak to in video gaming?
Being in the flow.
Yeah, being in the flow. You got it. Being in that special sweet spot on that graph where we are doing things and our understanding of time, space, and reality is completely blurred, right? That is good design. You're going to be a very profitable game designer if we can get to that point, right? Now, how do we get to that point? A tremendous amount of experimentation, right? What you guys created today is your first experiment, right? And we're going to prototype. You guys got some good feedback today on whether or not that experiment was a success or a failure, okay? Some of you guys had successful failures. Some of you guys had successes, right? We learn from both of those things. I'm a big believer that you actually learn more from your failures than you do your successes, but we still can learn from both of them, right? So we have to be willing to experiment and try things because we're going to figure out through that process of how to get inside that flow, okay? And out there in the real world, where does a lot of this experimentation truly happen? It happens on the job, in the development cycle, and the play testers are really the ones that kind of answer these questions. The game designers, they come up with conditions, they send it over to the play testers, and the play testers, they spend 80 hours on this one level, and they say, this is what's working, this is what's not working, right? And then we make changes. We incorporate that feedback into what we've created, okay? Game design is not linear. It is certainly not rigid, okay? This is an organic, non-linear process, okay? Okay. A couple other things that I want you to really consider as we start to go into the next phase of development for this level, okay, is feedback. We have to be able to start prototyping it and building some sort of communication system back to the player on if they're achieving these goals or not, okay? We need to consider the player's understanding of where they are in this experience, okay? In sandbox games, and this is tough for us designers in this era of video games. For sandbox games, they drop you in and say, go have fun, game designer walks away, right? Basically. We're not making sandbox games in here, okay? We're making an experience-based game, okay? Uh-huh. Yeah, right? We're not Rockstar. We're not making Red Dead, okay? That's not happening in this class, okay? So we need to walk them through this experience and then give them a lot of feedback on their progress, okay? So that's something that we need to consider from the outset of the creation of this experience, is how are we going to tell the player how well of a job they are doing inside of our game, okay? That's really important. So each, there are almost 30 of us in this class, okay? There are 30 different games with 30 different experiences and 30 different goals that we're trying to get our players to achieve, right? How are you going to communicate to the person next to you that they've achieved or not achieved the goal of the game, okay? Is there a defined purpose, a defined goal that we're trying to get our gamer to achieve? Okay? Interesting question, right? Only you can answer that, right? Okay. If you ever watch a video gamer play, I always love doing this. Going back in time a little bit, when I was in college, this was like, oh boy, I don't remember. I think this was Xbox. I think it was the Xbox era, right? And I have vivid memories of having Sunday nights with all of my guy friends. We'd go over and we'd play Halo, right? And we were all on the couch at one point. There's probably 5 or 6 of us, and we kind of cycle through. And we all brought, because we were super nerds, we all brought our controllers. We plugged them in, because in the area you had to plug your controllers in. We didn't have Wi-Fi controllers yet, right? And our significant others, our girlfriends or our wives at the time, would also come. It'd just kind of be a nice social atmosphere. And they always used to give us a hard time. The girls of the group that did not play video games would give us a lot of crap because they would make fun of our gamer faces, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? The gamer faces, right? The look of sheer, utter concentration, right? There's, I love the ones that are like with your tongue's out. Yeah. Everyone gets real tense. Yeah, it happens. So this is our gamer faces, right? When you've achieved gamer face, we've hit it. when your gamer has achieved gamer face, you've done your job as a game designer, right? Because they are so focused and so concentrated and so immersed in the experience that you've created that there is nothing else that's entering into their little mind, okay? So when you're creating the goals and the challenges for this level, I want you to think about how we can focus, okay? Now, when you focus something, when you focus on a thing, on a challenge, what does that look like? What are some of the ideas that we should try to establish in focusing our gamer on a challenge? I see people are doing this, which is interesting. I love it. Hinting at the rewards. Dangle the carrot. Absolutely, for sure. Say, hey, there could be a special secret treasure chest at the end of this rainbow. Okay?
Throw like a piece of the reward or example of the reward. Like
I like it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or like with, what is it, League of Legends. They let you play all of these characters for free. They rotate them every week.
Yeah.
Which makes you then want to buy them.
Buy them.
Which makes you want to, once you get focused on playing a certain one, you want to keep that going.
Yep.
You wind up
Throwing down some cash, you know. They're not stupid. They know how to grab your ankles and hold you by your ankles and shake all the coins out of your pocket, right? They know how to do it. Jason.
Generally, they should have enough like tools in their tool belt and like know what they do to like start scheming and like planning like an idea, you know?
Right, exactly. I like it. I like it. Again, making it a little bit more difficult than what they believe they can do, right? The scheme comes for them going, I think I can do this, right? But we're going to make it a little bit harder than what they think they can do, right? Football players, football's starting, right? NFL's back. And of course, a big part of football is coming up with your plays, your scheme, right? And the coaches and the players, they come up with these schemes because their experience says that I think this will work, but the experience of playing football is just a little bit difficult than what that scheme allows for, right? What's the X factor in that dynamic? You guess wrong, or maybe just the other team, right? Yeah. Exactly. The unknown element is how the other team's going to react to what you schemed and what you planned, right? That's where the challenge comes in, okay? So we want to make sure we're focusing our player on a singular challenge. Don't give them too much to do. Just give them like one thing to do, right? Have the entire experience in that moment be about one thing, okay? And then go from there. I heard a lot of you guys talking while you were discussing your game designs, and I was both happy and sad to hear that you guys had a lot of really great ideas, right? And your games are going to be packed full of these wonderful ideas. But start thinking about how we can focus our player on one idea at a time. We're not trying to do everything. We're trying to do one thing at a time, okay? And you're going to find that your gamer is really going to respond to that. It's going to be more enjoyable if there's just a singular focus or a focused experience rather than trying to do 8 things, right? We're just doing one thing. Okay. So we have a little bit of a problem here, okay? And I think I've outlined the conditions of the problem that's in front of us as game designers, and here it is. So people enjoy the sense of exercising control in different situations, right? We like that. As human beings, that's kind of one of the things that gets us out of the door every day, right? Is that we're going to be able to influence our environment a little bit. We exercise our, a sense of control on our environment. We're influencing the people, the places, and the surroundings that we go. We like that, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think it maybe just in my mind, it made it sound like I was like this megalomaniac. I want to control all the peons and no, that's it. That's not what I'm talking about. Or maybe I am. No, I'm joking. However, it is not possible to experience a feeling of control unless the outcome is unsure. Think about that for a second. We love controlling things, right? Admit it. Everyone just give the idea a hug. We're all control freaks, okay? So what's the big problem here? What's the paradox in the video game world?
We can only feel that way if the outcome is uncertain or we don't know what's going to happen.
Bingo, right? So what's the problem?
Oh, wait, we need it so we know what's going on and stuff.
Give the illusion of control without ever actually giving control.
Bingo, that's the paradox itself, right? And this is our job as the game designers, to find this magical kind of recipe, right? Where we're producing this illusion, and it is an illusion of control, but not actually giving them control, right? Because why don't we want to give up control to our gamer?
If you ever like just completely destroyed a game with cheat codes and it's fun for 45 seconds, you know why.
Bingo, that's it, right? Have you guys, do you guys ever read the comic book Calvin and Hobbes? Yeah, love Calvin and Hobbes. One of my favorite comic strips when I was little, right? Still to this day, I enjoy Calvin and Hobbes very, very directly. And one of the common kind of recurring little bits in that comic series was this game called Calvin Ball, right? And you guys know the premise behind Calvin and Hobbes. You have a feisty little first grader, Calvin, and his little stuffed animal, which is a tiger. His name's Hobbes, and he comes to life. Yeah, in Calvin's imagination, his stuffed animal is not just a stuffed animal, it's his best friend. And he walks, he talks, they play games together. They're lifelong partners and friends, right? And they play this game called Calvin Ball. Does you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. What is the singular rule in Calvin Ball? There are no rules, right? So are they playing a game if there are no rules? No, they're not actually playing a game, because all games have rules that each of the participants of that game need to agree upon before the game starts, right? So that's kind of an interesting place to be in as game designers, right? Because we're trying to give our players control. We're trying to give them the illusion that they're playing inside of a box that they control, but they're not actually controlling it. We're controlling it, right? I hate to say it, but we are kind of like the little puppet master, pulling the strings of our players to get them to do X, Y, and Z, right? That's our job. Yeah?
I was gonna say it's similar to like how like a game can have like, let's say there's combat and then skill tree, and then like you can choose like which skill tree to go down, but like at the end of each skill tree, they all do exactly the different things.
Yeah. At the conclusion of the game, the balance factors have not really changed from one another. Yeah. The percentages are all the same.
Kind of
Yeah.
lazy game design.
Huh?
That's lazy game design.
Could be.
I mean,
Very could be. Yep.
or very good game design. So
Yeah.
Cheats in the way the game works with like a lot of games where they have like health that can sort of come back. They will make it so that if you get hit, what would normally been hard enough to be lethal, they will actually cut it down so you always wind up with that sliver of health.
Yeah.
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 This is a hard thing to work with in the game design industry, right? But we always want to make sure we're providing a little bit of an illusion of control for our players, that they are truly influencing their environment, right? That they are the masters of their own destiny, that they are the captain of this ship, but we know exactly what's on the other side of the horizon. We know exactly where all the monsters are going to come from. We know which doors are locked and where the keys are, okay? For us on the design side, nothing is a secret, right? We produce the illusion of an unknown environment to our player, but as we're creating it, and I heard someone say this, and I think it was Rob, and this is not a criticism, I heard him say, well, I don't want to give away the secrets of my game. No, we're supposed to give away this. In a community of designers, we want to tell us, okay, the insiders, if you will, what all the secrets are. We want to keep that back from the gamer a little bit, okay, because we want them to experience that illusion of control. But for us,
Or you feed them one part of that secret so they feel they've discovered some like
massive thing, like, oh, now I understand how it works, and you're like, well, that's only like 1% of it.
leak something.
Yeah, right. One of the things that's tough for all folks as they start to go into the game design industry is not being a gamer, right? We treat everyone, we're game designers right now, okay? So remember, it's not a secret. The last thing that we want to do when we're creating challenge in this engaging environment is that we want to make sure that we're creating an invitation to actually play the game. Okay? This kind of speaks to the premise and creating a context that's engaging for our audience, right? Hopefully everyone in here is starting to figure out who their game is for, right? If you're making a game that really interests you, cool, right? But also make sure that it links to a group of people that's similar to you and really understand what that audience is, okay? And we need to be making some sort of premise or context that invites the gamer to play, right? People just don't play games because they're in front of them, right? There's always something. There's always a hook that gets them into this experience, right? It drives me crazy. Often the hook is the graphics, which drives me absolutely batty as just a gamer as a whole. What's the first thing we do when we go into GameStop? Standing in front of the wall of video games. What's the first thing we do when we pick up a box? Turn it over, look at the graphics on the back, right? Yeah, if the graphics aren't good on the back, we put it back. We're like, oh, this is not going to be a good game.
I think there's been kind of not like a pushback against that, but there have been games that have come out that have
Yeah.
hard proven that you don't need good graphics
Yo,
to be
and-
good, like super hot.
And I think this speaks to every sense the maturity of our industry and of our art form. We're getting to that point now where we're kind of in like the late teen years, okay, of our development, you know, and we're starting to become aware that it's not all about how we look, right? When you're an early teenager, it's all about your aesthetic, how others perceive you. But when when you get into early adulthood, you really don't give a crap about what other people think, right? You're just gonna you stop caring, right? And you start being your own person, your own individual. I think the game design industry is currently going through that kind of development stage. In the early '80s, we were in the infancy, right? In the '90s, we were kind of in the preteen years, or the 2000s were like the preteen years, okay? The early teens, we were in the adolescence. Now I think we're in young adults, right? We're starting to prove that the actual art form as a whole can be very unique and specialized, and people understand that uniqueness.
Do you have a theory as to why a lot of games in the 90s and 2000s were really excellent games, and why the amount of excellent games went downhill?
Yeah, I do have a theory as to why we kind of went through this renaissance. Yeah,
They were just really good.
good games. Yeah, absolutely.
My theory is that basically it was the limitations that were placed on games back then, so they had to focus on different things.
Yeah, I like it.
There were more diversity of developers.
Absolutely.
Less companies eating up things, more small companies with big ideas. They didn't limit themselves based off of what sold.
Corporate video gaming has changed the face of the game design industry. You can't ignore the influence of these mega studios that have 1,000 designers and artists and programmers that have an annual revenue in the billions of dollars. Okay, that influence is felt at every single stage, right? I like to highlight Michael's point. I think in the early days of the video game industry, we weren't able to do a whole lot, so we had to be creative with what we had. And when we have limitations like that, I think there's an explosion of creativity. We saw the exact same thing in the visual effects side. In the early days of visual effects, when it was pretty limited and pretty basic, you saw some of the most beautiful effects coming out of like the 1996, 1997 era. And then you compare that to what we see today, where it's like, I was watching a Transformers movie, the most recent Transformers movie, and it's like, I can't even see the characters' faces. I can't understand what they look like. I can't see their mouths, right? We've gotten so detailed, and we've gone so far into hyper-realism that it's losing its purpose, right? So,
Avatar's a really good-looking movie, and that's like almost entirely CGI.
yeah,
It's like Uncanny Peak instead of Uncanny Valley. It's like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hyper-realism. But going back to our world, we want to make sure that we're producing an experience that's inviting, that is at its root, at its DNA, something that people want to play. Where's a good starting point to figuring out what people want to play?
YouTube.
Twitch.
What is the most easy way to understand what games people want to play? Could be.
Look at the genres of the games out there already.
Yeah, I like it. GameStop. Play some games. That's it, right? Play some games. Connect with your own personal attention, your own personal interest in the games that you play. Think about the games that you just absolutely love, the go-tos, okay? When you go home after class today, half of you, I can guarantee you're going to go play a video game, and that's not a criticism. I say thumbs up for rock and roll, okay? What is it about that experience that's drawing you back, right? Incorporate some of that. Be inspired by it. Shoot outright steal. We can do that in the video game industry. Just put your own fingerprint on it, you're okay. All right? So think about, the fastest way to get a good understanding of what people want to play is to look at what you want to play, okay? Because if you make your game personal, it's going to feel personal. If it feels like something organically has kind of come out of the developer, that will resonate with people, okay? The larger point here is don't do something that you're just doing because you think it's what people want to play. Do something that you want to play, okay? And that's a good place to start.
I think that goes back to what Indigo was asking. I mean, games are developed due to like market research, stockholders, like, oh, we're developing this because this has been a successful genre.
Yeah. I'm a big believer. My go-to on every single thing is emotion. The more emotional we make our designs, the better it will fundamentally be. I don't put a lot of stock. Yeah. These are, it's unfortunate where we are, okay? Because like I said, corporate America has found out that the video game industry is a cash cow, okay? And they're
actually kind of in the golden age of that researching, like Undertale, Brave, like all these small, and like 2, 3, 1-person, like small teams. So
please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there aren't options out there from independent developers that are doing, I'm not saying that, right? I'm not saying that at all. Okay. However, one of the things that I see a lot of budding game designers do is they go home and make a Halo clone. Okay. They're designing a game because they think it's cool and it's not emotional. Okay. Find your idea in this invitation in emotion first. Okay. I mean, have you guys ever been to a party where it's like, it's a casual acquaintance, and it's like you feel like you're invited to the party, but you kind of like don't want to go, but feel like that you need to go because you got to make an appearance, or maybe it will impress someone else, or maybe you feel obligated to go for whatever reason, right? Do you really have a good time at that party? No. 9 times out of 10, you don't, okay? Because it feels like a chore, something you have to do, right?
Not until your best buddies show up.
Yeah, then it's like, okay, now it's a party, right? Now we're having fun, right? But then there's experiences where I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z with my best friends, and it's going to be, the best night of our lives, right? That's emotional because you've invested in that experience before it even begins, right? There's something about, hanging out with your friends on Friday night, going to wherever, right, that gets you out the door, okay? And they throw down a tremendous amount of cash, okay? Then emotion, we should always start with emotion, okay? We want drama. We want drama, okay? That's what leads good design. All right, I'll tell you what. I've been going for about 50 minutes. Now's a really great time to take a break. Back in 10 minutes, please. Okay, so we have some technology that we need to look at this afternoon, okay? That will help us with our next iteration, because we have 2 basic missions this week. And actually, let's just begin this section by cruising back over into Canvas. And on the week 2 section, I've posted our 2 assignments this week. Our first assignment is what's called a gray box, which is just a very, very bare bones 3D representation of our level. Okay, and I mean bare bones. Ignore the fancy image. I think I'm going to change that. Yeah, that's no bare bones. And we'll talk about what bare bones means here in a minute. Okay, basic. Okay. Now, what's the purpose behind these gray boxing, this basic 3D representation? What's the role of this stage?
Rough draft.
It's a rough draft.
See it on the scale from like the actual perspective.
You got it. Now we're actually dropping the player into the experience, and we're starting to see how big this thing is going to be, and what are like the run distances for how far are things and how close are things. Is it realistic to expect our gamer to have the experience inside this little boundary box? Okay. Now the gray box is a complete visualization of this level. So that at no point should you go, well, and then they're going to do this, but I didn't have time to do that, right? This is low res, so you should have enough time to create something here that completely showcases the details of your level, okay? Now, actually, let me rephrase that sentence. Showcase the level. It may not have all the details. It's actually likely to have 3/4 of it be absent, and that's fine. That's the purpose of this. It's the next small step forward into the design process, right? We're not doing final modeling. We're not putting textures on this thing. I mean, if you want to put some basic textures, go crazy. But it's going to be very, very blocky and very basic, okay? The gray box stage is all about establishing kind of the spatial dimensions in which this experience is going to take place. However, start prototyping and representing the challenges they have in there. If you want to have a jumping challenge, or if there needs to be a bridge or a mountain, put a visualization or some sort of representation of that challenge in the gray box, okay? You should be able to walk through this entire level, and while you're talking with someone, and they should be able to see it in front of them on screen, okay? A complete draft. It should be everything in there, just in very, 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 very low res. If I see any sort of high resolution, fancy moto modeling, I'm going to fail you, okay? If I No fancy moto modeling yet, right? Because we don't know what we're going to model yet, right? How can we model something without understanding what it is that we need to model first, okay? We may have an idea that I'm going to need a really cool, fancy 3-story building that, Mike and I were talking about, like a wizard's castle. How big does that wizard castle need to be? What's its overall basic dimensions? Luckily for us, the gray boxing tools inside of Unity allow us to get through to these answers very, very quickly, okay? Using some pretty neat tools, and I think you guys are really going to dig using the Pro Builder toolset that now comes part of the Unity package. And we're going to go over Pro Builder today. It's pretty rad. You guys are going to like Pro Builder, okay? It's, in every sense, it's the tool that I think you've been waiting for, okay? And you'll see that in action here in a minute. So to help us kind of learn the Pro Building process, for our lab exercise this week, you're going to be making a building using the Pro Builder tools inside of Unity, in Unity, okay? So think about that for a second. We're actually going to be doing 3D modeling in Unity now, okay, which is pretty rad. And luckily, it's very simple, it's very straightforward, and I think you're going to dig it, okay? So if we go back to so there's 2 things. Homework, it's due by next Friday at 1. In addition, we have our lab exercise, as I mentioned just a second ago. It's just going to be a simple building that has to have an inside and an outside, okay? At the conclusion of this little small, simple project, you should be able to throw it down into Unity and kind of walk around the inside of the building, okay? Now, when I say a non-uniform shape, your building is not to be a cube, okay?
Rectangle, okay?
No. A rectangle is not okay. Make it an L shape, right? Make it a little bit more engaging than a cube or a rectangle, all right?
What about cylinder?
Fail.
What about 2 rectangles and 1
Fail. All right, let's jump over into Unity and see how this all works out. So I've just gone ahead and started a new game. And the first thing that we need to do is that we need to load in the ProBuilder package, okay? Now, last week I jumped up and down about the evils of the asset store because it's really easy to go out and buy models and scripts and packages. We generally don't want to do that in the context of this class, but that doesn't mean it's a no-go zone, okay? Because there's actually a lot of really great free resources and tools on the asset store that we want to use, okay? So, asset store is going to load, hopefully. It's taking a sweet time. So if you don't have the asset store tab, it's under Window, and then, where is it? Yeah, under the General. In this version of Unity, FYI, they have completely reorganized this window drop-down menu, okay? So go through it, get comfortable with it. There's been some big changes, okay? Unity is getting very complex, which is a good thing. The tool set is growing and is becoming more mature. And we want to go over into the asset store. Da-da-da. Of course, okay. Summer Sale 2018. What we want to search for, it's called ProBuilder, okay? And ProBuilder is a pretty neat extension. And it is free, and it looks like all the ones that are coming up first are Pro Building Pack. Yes? Is it in there? Package Manager. Yep. Is it in there now? Ah, I did not know that. That is a faster way of doing it. Okay, let's talk about how we get to the Package Manager, because that's really what ProBuilder is. It's an extension. It's a tool that we're going to use inside of Unity. So if we go to the window, pull down menu, Package Manager. Okay, so in this area, this is a place for us to see which packages that are currently installed in this instance of Unity inside of our project directory. If we go to the All category, as Indigo pointed out for us, it's in here under ProBuilder. Okay, and we're going to talk about a couple other tools that now come with Unity that we had to add into our project directory. So let's go ahead and download it. Let's install it. There it goes. So it's importing it into our project directory. Of course, it's taking forever today on a Friday afternoon. I'm convinced that all the computers on campus on Fridays are like, we're done. Been working hard all week, ready to go home. What ProBuilder is a tool set that allows us to build, edit, and export geometry from Unity. So it's a great tool for us to very quickly go in and flush out some 3D models in the editor, which will allow us to very quickly walk around them, see what they look like in 3D, and while in Unity. What you got?
New version, skip.
Skip. Always skip. All right, here we go. So I've downloaded it in. It's ready to rock and roll. Okay. So like everything, when it comes in as a package, there's going to be a folder, okay? But this is a little bit different from some of the other tool sets that and the other packages that we've imported in before, okay? ProBuilder actually has a whole series. It's under Tools, a whole series of tools, okay? So we access all of the ProBuilder stuff up here. And the first place that we want to start is the ProBuilder window, okay? The ProBuilder window is going to bring this tool set to our surface, okay? And it's pretty neat, okay? It's pretty neat. Before we go too much further, this can be docked. So if you want this, like over here, you can do that. Or you can have it in its own floating window. Of course, sometimes find it. There it is. So pick a spot for it. I don't care where. I think given the context of what we're doing, I'm just going to have it docked inside of this part of my interface. This also can be changed. It's important to know this because if you go out online and start looking at the library resources surrounding ProBuilder, you'll probably see this menu in icon mode. If you right-click on the background of this palette, you can use icon mode, which I find a little frustrating because the icons are kind of, well, yeah, they don't really communicate directly what it is that we're doing. But let's go back to text mode. You can really see from all the text labels of the buttons what this thing can do, okay? We've basically created a very miniature version of Modo inside of Unity in a suite, okay? It will allow us to create some shapes, edit those shapes, and then if you look very, very carefully, we can even export those shapes. So we prototype and build a basic representation of our house, and then once the game design crew is like, yep, this is it, we can export that out as an OBJ, you send it over to a 3D artist, and then boom, they go crazy with all the detail and whatever app they're using. There's even a UV editor inside of Pro-Builder. Yeah, it's sweet. You guys are really going to dig it. It's a deep, deep extension, and I'm really happy that it's now part of the core Unity toolset. Can't get better than that, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So there's a couple things in here that we can do. So I'm going to do new shape. I'm going to get this little popover tool, okay? Now check it out. It's creating a cube for us, but as a reminder, excuse me, there's a whole bunch of shapes in here that we can change or create. Like for example, I can create a staircase. Okay, I can create a staircase, and then I can change the number of steps. Yeah, I can change, you know, if you want to have a curved staircase. I mean, it is a wickedly powerful extension. Yes, sir? How do you get it? Okay, so to get Pro Builder, go to the top of the screen where it says Window, Package Manager. Once you open up the Package Manager, you want to go into the All tab. And then scroll down until you find Pro Builder. It's listed alphabetically. Yeah?
So are these shapes exportable in like IXO or any other format?
It's going to go out as an OBJ. Yeah, OBJ, which we can easily import into any 3D modeling package that we're using. Here we go. Now we're no longer having that weird screech, so I apologize for that. Okay, so one of the things, the shift key, let's go back into that. So I can grab one of these polygons. Check it out. If you hold down the shift key, now we can start doing box modeling. Okay, we can start fleshing things out. Okay, it's interactive extrudes. There's also bevels in here, so I can bevel this in. Okay, some face bevels, which is pretty fun. If you do the R key, of course, you can start scaling it down.
Would it be the scale
I'm sorry, say again, I can't hear you.
Would it be the scale
Could you be a little bit more specific? I don't quite understand the question. Is it okay if we scale the what?
the cubes? I've got a question. Could we import a model to get these photos to scale?
So, scale is going to be a constant factor for us in understanding our scale. Has anyone figured out the scale factor that these cubes are created with? Yeah, meters, okay? Definitely begin to explore that system of scale on your own, right? Import in a Moto cube, see how big it is in comparison to a Unity cube. I think you're going to find that's 1 meter bigger.
Is there a character model there we could plop in with some element?
Absolutely. Yeah, go find it. Yep. And that's really what you want to do when you're prototyping is you want to put a game controller in there pretty quickly and get that working. Okay. So the ProBuilder toolset is pretty fantastic. It allows us to do a tremendous amount. And it's a great way for us to very, very quickly get up and running. Okay. Because if you look at what we can do here, you know, we can go in and, you know, within a couple heartbeats, let's just do it. I want to make, excuse me, we can make some pretty cool things. Now, I just did the new poly shape, okay? So when you do a new shape, you're going to pick from that gigantic list of options. But when you do a new poly shape, check it out. Now, excuse me, now we're in the driver's seat. There we go. And once you close it, you'll be able to go in and pick a height. Come on, there it is. We're up and running. Now let's pretend for whatever reason that I want this crazy shape that I just created, and I saw I'm in component mode. Apologize. Let's pretend for a crazy second that I want this thing to be the ground of whatever it is that I'm building. Is there a way that that will allow me to very quickly snap the top polygon to the bottom of that shape right in there? The V key. Yeah, don't forget about your vertex snapping. That's how the snapping engine works in here, is by verts. Okay, so I'm going to grab this other shape, this new game object. Okay. All right, and let's do this. I'm going to grab that topmost polygon. Now, if I hold down the V key and drag it up, it's going to snap to whatever vert I put my mouse on. That's pretty cool. So the V key is our global vertex snap. Okay. That will allow you to very quickly add certain components, put them together. Like, for example, let's go back into the ProBuilder menu. I'll create a new shape with this time. I'm going to create, I'll just start with a cube again. And I think I'm going to subdivide this cube initially, let's see, by, well, shoot. I'll just build the cube, okay? Then, get some edges selected. It's so insert edge loop. There we go. Actually, let's do it one more time. The wrong edge loop selected. Oops. I'm stuck in some sort of, there we go. There it is. Now I can insert some edge loops. Nope, I'm in the wrong component mode. Sorry, got to be in edge mode, insert an edge loop. There we go. And go. Oh, don't crash, please don't crash. Unity has a hard time thinking, oh, it's baking something at the moment. It's baking light maps. It's trying to do 3 things at once. It's a hard time keeping up with my speed.
Can we turn off the baking or the lighting? Just make it
I'll let you explore that. Like I said, this semester is going to be hard for a lot of folks, so I'm not going to give you all the answers.
Is there a way to, I see that there's a way to replicate like a plane.
Mhm.
Is there a way to like,
Yes.
like terrain, or more,
There's always a way,
more
right?
organic looking to it?
Yeah, there is a terrain object inside of Unity. If you go into the game objects pull down menu, unfortunately, my Unity's locked. But there's a terrain object that you can make. Under the create menu, I think, game objects create 3D, and it's terrain. I believe that's where it is.
If we wanted to, we could take that view, export it to Modo, mess with it, shape it, and then bring it back in.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. But remember, the purpose of this is to build some things in mode or in Unity pretty fast, right? To start to block out our level in Unity. That way, if we need to make a change, if things are too big or too small, we can make that change now and immediately playtest it. Our traditional modeling practice slows down our entire understanding of the object, right? Because we have to model something, and then we have to export it from Modo, import it into Unity, drop it into the game. Sometimes we can even make the game, right? You know, that is an entire feedback loop that just kind of gets in the way and slows down this entire thing, right? So, you know, this is a great way for us to quickly test an idea. Yeah.
Program here is including it's just, I don't
So did you go to the Tools menu at the top of the screen? Did you download it?
I believe so.
So go to the Tools menu. That's where you find ProBuild.
Is there a folder of sort of pre-made stuff in Moonlight that like had a Modo?
They're called packages. Look at that package manager. Okay. Well, let's try this again. All right. So let's just throw down a new shape here, and all right, that'll do. Yep. So maybe what I want to have happen here. Yeah, cool. Now, maybe this is the beginning of my doorway. Okay. Now, what's cool about doing a lot of this inside of Unity with ProBuilder is that we can go in and we can make a shape. Yep. Let me just go into object mode here. Excuse me. Rock and roll. There we go. Okay. So now, all right, let's go back into the package manager real fast. And let's see. Let's find the camera package. Okay. I'm getting used to this packages manager myself. It's still pretty new to me. All right. Say again?
How do you delete?
Yeah, they make it pretty hard to delete things. You got to do it in your hierarchy. You just can't select something, hit the backspace key.
Okay.
You right click on it, then you can delete it. All right. Let's go back into the package manager. It's what I really want. Oh, okay. Yay. Okay, let's see if this works. Because I did when I was looking at this earlier. In the import package, this is the old way of doing it. And they want everyone to do it through this package manager now. It's a better way of working with it, but if you're used to doing it this way, to get all your character controllers and what have you, it's difficult to get going. So I'm going to import moving file failed. Oh, awesome. Let's try again. Oh, this is great. But apparently it didn't have any effect on the importing of this new camera package. All right. So once this compiles, we'll get all of our, there we go, all of our standard assets, and we're gonna go into cameras, prefabs, and let's do, oops, oh, I'm just having a day. I didn't want the camera package pack. I wanted to have the characters package. Here we go. This is where we can find those old school first person and third person presets.
Yeah, it's grayed out.
It's grayed out for you guys under the assets menu? It was grayed out for you? Is anyone else's grayed out?
Right now, that's it. It's a CV resolve that button. You keep going.
There we go. All right. Here we go. This is what I was after. Yeah. Try to move a file. Interesting. However, when I hit cancel, it did it for me. Yeah. Okay. We'll keep going forward here. See if we can figure this out. So, like I said, so did you which package did you bring in the character package? Yeah. So, go to assets, import package, characters. That's where that first person control prefab is. All right. So now I can start playing things, okay? I can start to prototype as I play, which is pretty neat. It does it automatically, yeah, which is pretty neat. All right. Yeah, it will automatically give things collision. And I think, I'm trying to think back to just regular Unity shapes if it does that. Okay. So it's under assets, import package, characters. Yours is grayed out too, huh? Well, that's kind of odd. Huh. Why would it be some be grayed out and others not? I don't know. Let's figure that out in lab here in a second. Okay. So like I said, one of the great things about working with Setup Pro Builder is that we can just very quickly iterate. Okay, we don't have to wait to go through an entire 3D modeling pipeline to figure out the size of these things. You know, we can just very quickly do it in here. Oops. Once you start looking at the way this works, you'll find that the tool set is remarkably similar to Modo. It's just the speed in which we put this stuff together is just slowed down a little bit. It's pretty neat. Double-clicking on edge loops will allow you to select them and move them out of the way. Use the, you get it all? Use the grid texture to help you out, okay? That grid texture is there for a reason. If you look very carefully, the default material that's been applied to all of our Pro Builder assets are 1 meter cubes, okay? So if you know that you want to have a doorway be like 2 meters by 3 meters, the texture is there to help you out, okay? In previous iterations of this class, we literally had to just take cubes and stack one on top of each other. And that kind of got in the way for the most part. That was a slow workflow. This makes it a whole lot faster. So there it is. There's my 3-unit door. I go back over here. I'll hold down the shift key. Oops. Don't think I quite grabbed it. The selection engine is, well, it is what it is, as they say. It's not Modo, which has the best selection engine on the planet, in my opinion. All right, there we go. That's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to grab these top polygons. Does anyone remember the keyboard shortcut to do the extrusion? For Pro Builder. Shift. Yeah. There we go. Looks like I got some normals. Some problems here. Oh, the texture updated. Now I'm good to go. So this is going to be my door in here. These faces. And you can actually delete them and detach them. Okay. Now they're their own object. Yep. If I wanted to delete those faces. They're gone. This is cool. Check this out. You can even go in, select some edges here. Let's see if I can grab them. That one and that one. And there is a bridge. Whoop. So you can reconstitute that opening. There we go. Within a couple mouse clicks, I've completely prototyped custom door. Let's play the game, see how it works. Yeah, wonderful. I can walk through, it's no problem. It's big, but it doesn't feel too big. So I'm a happy camper. Which is pretty neat. Yeah, the whole tool set is really designed for us to get through that gray boxing stage quickly. You know, our models, they don't have to be super blocky representation. They should have doors and windows and be a good approximation as to what we should be seeing in the final end result. So make sure you're doing that for your playtest this week. Now, there's a question earlier about how do we do terrains, okay? Now, let's see, I think, now if you'd like, and this is a good suggestion, these new poly shapes are helpful, because once you have something here, okay, you can actually subdivide it if you like, okay? Oops, it doesn't do subdivision surfacing. Well, I think it does. Yeah, there's some good stuff in here. Subdivide, set trigger, freeze transforms. Yeah, there's some good stuff in here. I'll let you explore it on your own. However, there is under the, there it is, good old-fashioned 3D terrain. So 3D objects, terrain, that's what we're after. That guy. That's it. This will allow us to build a 3D terrain. Now be careful with this, okay? If you took 424, you know that this is both a blessing and a curse. The terrains that we build initially are humongous, okay? They're pretty gigantic. Does anyone remember how we can go in or where we can go in and change some of these settings? The gear icon, yeah. So with the terrain selected, this gear icon will show us all the settings for my terrain. Let me zoom out a little too close. Here it is, and it's down at the bottom, and some of this resolution is the terrain width and the terrain length, okay? I'm actually really happy because they made a change to this most recent version. The defaults used to be 2000 by 2000, which is just like it's huge, right? So I'm happy they changed the size a little bit. Let's put it to 200 by 200. Yeah, there we go. And that's a little bit more manageable. Whenever I'm working with terrains inside of Unity, the first thing I do when I'm working with a terrain is I figure out its relative size, and then, unsurprisingly, I playtest that bad boy. And I run from one side of it to the other, just to kind of get a sense of how big this thing is. I haven't done any sculpting. I want to know pretty early on. Yeah, this is taking me forever to go from one side to another, but this is probably a good start. I'll stop the game, and I'll return back over here into my editor. The terrain tools inside of Unity are all brush-based, and they're many shades of okay. Where people have a hard time with the terrain tools inside of Unity is the opacity. You can see that as I sculpt, it just makes a mountain instantly, and that's very rarely what we want. So if you dial down the opacity and push it just a little bit, I think you're going to find the results are definitely a little bit more manageable. Small movements are better than big movements. Okay. And when I mean small, I mean very small. There we go. And it's all additive, so you get to build it up. Now, another thing that I like doing, especially at this stage, is that I really encourage people to use the second option, this one. Because this paint height will allow us to create different zones, different levels within inside of our environment. Okay? So, at the moment, let's put the height to 90. See how far that takes us. So once we get to 90, it's going to plateau. 90 was too much. Let's do this. Let's go back in time. Let's put the height to 10. Yeah. See, once it gets to 10, it just plateaus and it stops pushing it up. This is fantastic because now we can very quickly figure out all the different vertical planes inside of our environment. It's really a nice, handy, dandy little tool. I like using it a lot. Now, the only thing that we can't do at the moment is dig a hole. Right? How do I dig a hole?
Raise the terrain up.
Yeah, we gotta raise it. Okay. Now let's put. Yeah, good. Let's put the height to, oh, I don't know. Let's put it to 50, and then we hit flatten. Okay. Now, if you look at it, once you hit 50 and flatten, the entire terrain moves up. But ultimately, what that allows us to do is to push down. Okay. Because now, if we go back to the first tool, holding down the shift key will push down. Just a left mouse button drag will push up. Shift is going to push down. Okay. And it will push it down all the way to 0. There we go. So I really like this paint height. Okay. So if I put this to like 25, oops, not 50, 25, 25. Now it's going to push down until I get to 25. And I can create the many different planes inside of my environment. At this stage in the gray box scene, we don't want to make mountains. We're just trying to create zones, right? And we're trying to depict and understand the spatial relationship between all of these different zones. So keep it basic, block, okay? I'm not trying to make, perfect school environment yet. That's going to come very soon, but not yet, okay? If you'd like, if it's helpful, I definitely encourage you putting in some simple colors and simple materials. If you remember back to GCOM 424, that's something that we explored very, very directly. The materials are very much drag and drop, except for terrains. Terrains are the only ones that you really can't have that level of easy customization. But, let's see, where's my Pro Builder stuff? Grab both of these things. Put them on top of my terrain. Now we can overwrite there we go, that's close enough. So if you want to use this, or you want to use some color, you're more than welcome to use the Pro Builder default. But, you know, from time to time, you can create your own material. There it is. Just call this red. Of course, the albedo color is going to be red. You just drag and drop that.
Does Pro Builder pick out UV maps?
It does. It does. It's pretty sweet. Say again?
Usable or?
As usable as you make them. Yeah. There's some unwrapping tools and some projection tools that Pro Builder allows. I think, you know, if you keep in mind the intention of Pro Builder, it's not to make a final finished polished asset. It's just to help you kind of block it out and understand what these spatial dimensions really are. You know, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time UV mapping it because you're going to be rebuilding the model anyways and re-UVing it, you know, in another app. So feel free to change things when it comes to materials. I think color coding and drawing attention to things based off of color is a really great strategy, especially in the design stage. Okay. Okay, other questions on what we're doing this week? Yeah.
For the buildings, does it necessarily have to be a house or can it be any structure?
It can be any structure, just a building. Yeah, make a building. And really the lab assignment is just to kind of get us used to working with the Pro Builder tool set. That's it.
Maybe a tower?
Sure.
Maybe a tower that belongs to a certain
Wizard in your game? I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine.
I was leading
Yeah.
towards that.
Even though this is going to be primarily an exterior game, there probably is going to be a building, a hut, or something out there that you're going to need to build. The Pro Builder toolset allows us to do that pretty quickly. Yeah. So, great question. And this is the conclusion of our project this week. So, for your lab assignment, you're going to be making a house, a building, with using the Pro Builder toolset. I just want you to get up and running and get comfortable modeling inside of Unity because it's a great, fast, easy, simple way of fleshing out some shapes that doesn't force us and require us to go over into our DCC app, okay? Our direct content creation app, okay? For the lab assignment, all I really need to see that you've done it is just a picture. So just do a screen grab of your project when you're done, okay? So if this was my finished lab assignment, you know, you're more than welcome to just get in close, do a screen grab, or you can play the game if you'd like. My first-person controllers, way down over there, put them up. Does anyone know how to do a screen grab here on the Mac? You got it. Let's play the game. So Command Shift 3 is going to take a screenshot. There it is. There's my screenshot. Notice that it does a true screenshot. Okay. However, if you just want to do this interior part, here's what I would suggest. Let's go back into Unity. It's two things. In the Game tab, maximize on play. That will hide the editor for the most part. Command Shift 3 can take a picture. Okay, that works. If you don't have maximize on play the game. Command Shift 4 is a good alternative. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Command Shift 4, well, we're using the mouse look, so that probably is not going to be. But a Command Shift 4 allows you to take just a screen capture of a portion of the image. So 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. I'll let you figure out how you want to do it. All right. So that's for your lab assignment. For the actual gray box of your game, different. You're going to be making a build of your game, right? So we're going to go all the way through the entire pipeline here in this one project. Welcome back to building things in Unity, okay? Now, building games in Unity is pretty easy, right? Walk me through it. Yeah, so when I say walk me through it, I mean, you tell me.
Oh, I didn't think you mean like literally just build settings and whatnot.
Yeah, no, that's it. How do I build a game?
File.
Yep.
That's what you meant by
File.
build a game. Build settings.
Build settings, you got it, right?
And choose your platform.
And then choose your platform. Of course, we're doing Mac OS 10. I cannot support the Windows side of things. Okay, I don't even have a Windows computer. I don't even have access to a Windows machine. So if you give me a .exe, I'm going to fail you because you didn't follow the instructions, which is the Mac OS 10 binary. Okay, and we can't play Windows builds in this room. So you've just stopped yourself from playtesting your game next week as well. So you have to have a Mac OS 10 build. Now, excuse me.
If we make a build in Mac, can we then convert it?
Absolutely, and you're reading my mind. If you're doing this at home on a Windows machine, you have to install the Mac OS 10 build binary, okay? And it's part of the Unity game installer. If you didn't do that, go back to Unity, all right? Because when you download Unity from the website, what you actually download, if you're doing this at home, so when you do Get Unity, what you actually download is a download kind of wizard. It's a download installer. And then you choose from a big list what packages you want to install on your machine. One of those is the Mac OS 10 package. Okay? Like for me here I'm not sure if we did it here, but you have to, on the Mac side, we have to do the same thing for the Windows crew. We have to download and install the Windows Builder individually.
Would it be the package thing like with the Pro Builder?
No. Yeah, no, you have to install it. It's its own installer. Yeah.
Where do you find that?
Yeah, so if you didn't do it, hit the Get Unity button. It's going to download the installer, right? And that installer is going to have a humongous list of what you can install. So you want to check on the Mac OS 10 build option, and then if you've already have the core editor installed, just uncheck Unity editor, the documentation, uncheck that, and you have to individually download it and install it. All right. Okay, so let's go back to my build settings real fast. First, I'm going to do Mac OS 10. Yep. My scene, I only got one scene. They call it sample scene now instead of just untitled. Let's just build it. Put it on my desktop. Let's test. See if it works. Awesome. There's something in Pro Builder that is trying permission denied. I got to figure that out. However, if you hit cancel, seemingly it seems to work. So we'll see.
So when we install that package, we go to File, Build Settings, and then make sure it says Mac OS 10 Build.
Bingo.
Okay.
Gotta have a Mac version. All right, here we go. Let's play the game. I'm on ultra quality with my little red cube and my gigantic terrain. Oops, I didn't do something right, but it worked. What didn't I do right?
I don't think you actually have to see.
Yeah, let's try this. Let's do save scene as. Let's just call this level 1. Under my build settings, yeah, sample scene is not the right one. Let's try it again. There we go. I'm thinking about that Pro Builder bug that I just popped up 2 times for me. I was it failed trying to move a document. If you run into this problem over in the lab and it becomes a systemic issue, you can go down into the asset store and download the ProBuilder package from the asset store into your project directory. That may solve the permissions error that seems to be popping up with ProBuilder. One of the big challenges of working in an institution like this. Oh my gosh, it's taking forever. It's like watching paint dry, right?
So what file are we turning in for the second assignment?
So for the homework assignment, you're going to be turning in the actual app, the actual build of the game. Okay, you're not going to be turning in a project directory. I just want the app. Here we go.
Nice.
So in the context of my silly little scene here, what I would turn in at the end of the day is that, okay? I'm not sure how Canvas is interpreting these files this semester, so let's find out. In previous semesters, we had to zip up this app in order to upload it to Canvas. Let's find out real fast. Let's play it. I always play it, double check, make sure I'm turning in something. There we go, now it's working. Built the right level. Okay, that's not fantastic, but whatever. Let's go back over here into the week 2 homework. Let's see what happens this year if I try to choose and submit an app. Interesting. Yeah, it's allowing me to do it, but this little data chunk here is bringing up some very big questions for me, because the name of my file is just test app. Let's do this. The safest way to work is just to compress it into a zipped archive. There we go. And then just upload that compressed archive. Yeah, that gives me great confidence that it's going to upload okay. I didn't have a whole bunch of gobbledygook coming in as the file name. It's a direct representation of the file that I named it. So I think I would still recommend to zip up, create a compressed archive of your app before you upload it to the Dropbox on Canvas. Make sense? Everyone clear? Understand what we're doing this week? So 2 missions, your lab work. Remember, we have 90 minutes of lab time that you spend every week. Okay, it's to make a simple building using the ProBuilder tools inside of Unity. Take a picture of your project when you're done, upload it. And then the next level, or the next part, which is probably going to take 4 or 5 hours, is to do a complete gray box build of your level. Sound good? Questions? Yeah.
Do we have to worry about like game mechanics and whatnot, or just the level?
Just, well, you know, start introducing them. If you can figure out a good way to simply introduce them and communicate them, yeah, you should. If there's a jumping challenge or a puzzle challenge, start prototyping that out. The more that we can put on, put down in the level, the better. Yeah.
For the lab, do you want us to take a picture of the exterior and interior, or just the
Yes.
So yes to the both?
So let's, yeah, that's fine. All the above is okay. Yeah. There is no submission for that's just an error on my part. Give me 10 seconds, I'll fix it. Other questions on what we're doing this week for our homework? We've got about 30 minutes left in class, 25 minutes left in class. Let's use this time and get ahead of it. All right, let's get to work.